I can't be dealing with the stress of a Malik breakup. Hello everyone, it's Katie here. Episode 18. In the books, we had Magnus break up with Alec because Alec was trying to take away his immortality. In the show, they decided to completely flip it around. Now they have Alec breaking up with Magnus in order to give him his immortality back. I didn't think that anything could be as painful as the book Malik breakup, and yet here we are. It's the same outcome but a completely different path in getting there, and it is just as heartbreaking. Episode 18 was one of those episodes that kind of just ignores the book content for a little while. Instead of actively trying to stick to the book storyline, it just goes off and does its own thing. And I really like those episodes because it shows the writers' experimentation with the characters. It allows them to take the characters to places that we didn't think they'd go. This episode revolved around Halloween. I am assuming that we were meant to get this last year around Halloween time. The season was split into two, and I assume the original plan was for the first half in the first half of the year and then the second half in the second half of the year. Obviously that never happened because the cancellation happened and it all went to shit. But this felt like an episode that should have been shown at Halloween time. This episode really did feel like a sort of calm before the storm. I know a lot happened in it and it wasn't really calm, but there was a lot of discussion between the characters. It was one of those episodes that just takes everyone off in small groups and gives them conversations to think about. And I feel like that was a chance for the characters to talk things out before everything goes to crap in the next two episodes. So I really enjoyed getting to see the characters open up to each other a little bit. We had talks between Jace and Alec, between Alec and Izzy. Then we had a wonderful conversation between Magnus and Maris. It's always good to see the characters show their vulnerable sides to each other. And obviously we had the whole story with Simon and his sister as well. So in this episode we got to see Becca again. We find out that since everything that happened in the first half of the season, Becca and her mother have moved to Florida, but she comes to visit Simon because they'd have this yearly tradition of hanging out together on Halloween. I love the way she came all dressed up as a vampire to try and make Simon feel a little bit better. But you know, he just shut down all of those myths and ideas that mundanes have of vampires. Poor Becca. She really had her eyes opened in this episode. So what Simon did was kind of introduce his sister to the basics of the shadow world. In that first scene between the two of them, when he said that he'd seen people get dragged into the shadow world and get hurt because of it, I kind of knew that meant at some point Becca was going to get attacked, which did happen later on. Whenever somebody talks about the dangers of the shadow world, you know that that person is in danger. So Simon takes her to the bar to see all of the downworlders. I like how on Halloween they decide to drop the glamours and just be their true selves. Within that bar, it's their little safe haven. Poor Becca is thrown by everyone and everything. I loved the drunk werewolf. Becca is so wonderful. Can we just have her in the show all the time? But what was really great about her being here is that Simon finally got to talk. We could see how upset he was about having to erase his mum's memory, and I like that somebody was there to assure him that it was necessary and that it wasn't his fault. Because I feel like Simon hasn't really had much of a chance to talk things over in this half of the season. I still haven't had the scene that I really wanted, which was a big conversation between Simon and Clary. They haven't really had a chance to talk much in this half of the season. So I feel like Simon definitely needed his sister to visit and talk things over. Becca does get attacked at some point by one of these demons that are being placed around the city as a distraction. Izzy comes to the rescue. We have Becca instantly knowing that there is something between Simon and Izzy, and she helps put that idea in his head that there could be something more between them. So we are firmly planting the seeds of Sizzy now, and it did mean that we got a moment between Simon and Izzy at the end of the episode. Before everything went to shit, they were alone together in the Institute. Poor Simon, he's a mess when it comes to romance. He's so cute, I swear to God. But there was that undeniable moment where they considered going in for the kiss. I thought it was going to happen there, not going to lie, but we're definitely going to see more come from that. You know, there's no way that they're going to be able to just Ignore the fact that they nearly did kiss. So I'm excited for Sizzy in the future. So as much as I don't really want to talk about it because it hurts, I guess we've got to talk about Malik. So, you know, the season started off great. We had all these wonderful, healthy conversations. We had the promise of a Malik proposal, and then it just all went downhill. And now we've gotten to the breakup point. So after Magnus's drunken breakdown, the thought of him being constantly miserable has been playing on Alec's mind. And so he decides to contact Asmodeus. So yeah, it was a bit of a dumb move, but you're going to do everything that you can to make the person you love happy. So I completely understand why Alec did what he did. But of course with Asmodeus, nothing is ever simple. He says he'll only give Magnus his magic and immortality back if Alec breaks up with him. I hated Asmodeus showing Alec how much Alec being in Magnus's life has made Magnus more vulnerable and put him in more danger, because there are certain elements to that that are true, but it's not a bad thing. Alec has changed Magnus's life, but it is for the better. It just looks bad because bad things have happened, and so you can see the cogs going in Alec's brain as he thinks about how much he's put Magnus in danger. But you know, it's not his fault. He just can't see that in this moment. What Alec wants more than anything is for Magnus to be happy, so if that means breaking up with him, then he is considering doing that. I love the fact that Magnus and Mayrus had a chance to talk in this episode. I said a few weeks ago that Alec could probably understand what Magnus is going through because of his mother as well. And I did really want a scene between the two of them. So I'm glad that happened in this episode. And it was absolutely adorable. The annoying thing is that I think that talk with Mayrus kind of helped Magnus understand that he can come through this. Mayrus has been there. She's lost her identity as well, but she's managed to slowly rebuild her life, and she's got things to look forward to in the future. They talked about Luke and Mayrus trying to figure out what's going on there. She's got a new bookshop. Even though she's had the worst possible thing happen to her, she is still working towards better things, and I think that shows Magnus that he can get past this, and that he does have a life to live without his magic. But you know, it's too late because Alec already has spoken to Asmodeus. We get a talk between Alec and Jace where Alec asks Jace what he'd do in that situation, but he relates it to Clary. Jace tells him that even though it's selfish, he wouldn't want to be apart from Clary. But you know, Alec doesn't listen to that. So it's a bit pointless asking Jace for his advice. And then he tells Izzy. Izzy tries to tell him that this isn't what Magnus would want. Again, he doesn't listen. I think at the end of the episode when he sees Clary and Jace get reunited and he sees how in love they are, even though not really because Clary is not herself at that point, it kind of makes him think that Magnus's happiness is more important. So in the end, Alec does decide to break up with Magnus. I hated this scene. When he meets up with Magnus, he's immediately more cold and he shrugs Magnus off, and I hated seeing that change in him. It was horrible. Honestly, I completely forgot about the Malik breakup. I mean, I didn't forget about it being a thing because it's one of the most painful things I've ever read, but I didn't see it as something that would happen in the show because in the books it's to do with Camille and that whole storyline, and you know, we got Camille over and done with ages ago in the show. So I guess I just figured we wouldn't be getting a Malik breakup, but you know, it makes sense. Of course it has to happen at some point in a way that's the complete opposite to the book, which I love, because I hated the way in the book the breakup happened because Alec was being selfish. Whereas in the show, it's not because of Alec being selfish at all. It's the complete opposite of that. It is because of him just wanting Magnus to be happy. And you know, in some ways it's worse because neither of them want this, but Alec has to pretend that he does. Yeah, hated it. It was awful. It was brilliantly written, by the way, and absolutely amazingly shot. When you had the close-up of them kissing at the end, and you had that sad music whilst Magnus was telling Alec to stay with him, but then when Alec said that he can't and he stepped away, the music just completely stopped and it was silent as we saw Alec leave. The art within that scene, it was beautiful, but it was devastatingly so. I'm emotionally ruined. So I suppose I need to talk about poor Clary. They all believe that they've found a way to disconnect Clary from Jonathan, and so they go ahead and try that in this episode. It doesn't work. We have Luke showing up to be there for Clary. Very brief Luke moment, but I'm glad we got to see him again because damn, I miss him. I want him back properly. But yeah, it doesn't go to plan and nothing works. So Izzy comes up with another idea, but they can't do it straight away. It needs time. And also, the Seelie Queen has released demons all over the city as a distraction to draw the Shadowhunters away from the Institute. The Seelie Queen sends Jonathan's little pal from his moving apartment to go and kill Jonathan. Her reasoning behind it is the fact that he knows she has the Morning Star sword. She doesn't want the Shadowhunters to find out about that, and she's worried that Jonathan might eventually tell them. I love how Meliorn was like, you do realise if you kill him you're going to kill Clary? And the Seelie Queen was just like, sad. Lovely. So the Seelie is sent on her way to break into the Institute and pierce Jonathan's heart. But yeah, it doesn't exactly happen. We know that Clary has been acting up whenever Jace isn't around to stop her. We get another example of that in this episode when she ends up arguing with Izzy. Izzy calls Jonathan a monster and Clary doesn't take too well to that. But of course when Jace appears everything's fine again. I knew at some point she was going to be separated from Jace to the point that he wouldn't be able to stop her from doing something stupid. That happens at the end of the episode. She gets injured and thrown halfway across this dodgy warehouse. But I think Clary ends up unconscious and she enters this sort of other dreamy realm in her head. And you've got Jonathan there with his black wings and Jace there with his white angel wings. And she goes and takes Jonathan's hand. Not at how we managed to get to her while she was unconscious. That's not fair. So she wakes up and she's acting like everything's fine, but of course it isn't. She knocks Jace out, goes to the Institute, kills the Seelie before she kills Jonathan, and now I assume she's going to get Jonathan out of there. I honestly have no idea what's going to happen with regards to Clary and Jonathan, just because it is different from how it is in the books. So honestly, who knows where this is going? I worry for poor Clary, and I'm wondering how she's going to snap out of this. Is she going to be on Jonathan's side until the others manage to disconnect them? Or is she going to find a way to snap out of this beforehand and then she'll be responsible for disconnecting them? I don't have a clue. So the other thing that happened in this episode was Maya and Jordan. Jordan is safe now, but he's out of the Praetor. Maya wants to start building her pack. She ends up asking Jordan to be her beta. This scene at the end, Jordan's kind of starting to sound like a broken record now. When Maya was asking him to be beta and he starts talking about how he hurt her, and she was like, listen, I've told you once. Don't make me tell you again. I'm still quite sad that the show is taking the Jordan and Maya route. I assume they're going to get romantic in some way before the end, but then he's going to die. If the show pulls a Max on us and decides not to kill Jordan, I will be severely angry because that's one death that we do need. They can save Raphael if they want. They can change that up, I don't mind, but no, Jordan does have to go, I think. So the last thing that happens in this episode is Asmodeus killing that poor warlock and coming into the human realm. Yay! Just what we needed. I don't know whether Alec knew that Asmodeus was going to be leaving Hell in order to give Magnus his magic back. You know, it's not a good thing having Asmodeus wandering around the earth. And I think he's definitely done this deal with Alec because he wants to try and get in his son's life and manipulate him. That's what I think. Because thinking about it, Magnus is going to be in a very vulnerable state. Alec has just left him. He's going to get his magic back, and I think he's going to be in a position where Asmodeus can get into his head, and I don't like that. And I'm stressed. So yeah, there was lots to stress about in this episode. All good things. As always, if there are things that I have forgotten to mention, please feel free to talk about it in the comments. On a whole, I loved what this episode managed to achieve, but it ripped my heart out and I'm scared for the future. I can't wait for next week. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you next time. Bye!